So naweza kuona ndio nakuuliza kwa watu mkuje mkono huko Okay. Best weekend.
Tell it to me one more.
This is Hendrix Sound.
Africa, I'm writing you a love letter. Hope the message make you feel better. Now we know better, we gon' do better. So you better be a go-getter. Do better. Piga kura minjo game changer. Wacha leo nibadilishe agenda. Leo nicheze kama defender. Haina maana kutubeba ufala, pesa ni kwa wazee na kazi ni kwa vijana. Niko na madeni bado saloni same na kila kitu imepanda. Hakunanga mapenzi this side, poverty narusha misai. So kwa debe tuta decide. And in my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. Hey, yo, I say it as it is. Me, you wanga city shiki. You topics up address quizzes, you are pretty picky. Campaigns in a pig when a picky picky. We elect you, you get twisted, kidogo do nyim shikiki. Niko na state in a new mind, a funny let go. Don't name it jam kamiguna, I hardly rest, no. Mabona mbele au nyumo kumtani esto. Bado mna spread these rumors na manifestos. Spendi my leader, waleti mariba, self-employed.
Tell it to me one more time. Look into my eyes.
This is Hendrik Sam.
Africa, I'm writing you a love letter. Hope the message make you feel better. Now we know better, we gon' do better. So you better be a go-getter. Olela, wame do better. Piga kura mean the game changer. Wacha leo nibadilishe agenda. Leo nicheze kama defender. Haina maana kutubeba ufala, pesa ni kwa wazee na kazi ni kwa vijana. Niko na madeni bado saloni same na kila kitu imepanda. Hakunanga mapenzi this side, poverty narusha misai. So kwa debe tuta decide. And in my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. Hey, yo, I say it as it is. Me, you wanga city shiki. You topics up address quizzes, you are pretty picky. Why is that? Campaigns in a pig when a picky picky. We elect you, you get twisted, kidogo do nyim shikiki. Niko na state in a new mind, a funny let go. Don't name it jam kamiguna, I hardly rest, no. Mabona mbele au nyumo kumtani esto. Bado mna spread these rumors na manifestos. Spendi my leader, waleti mariba. Self-employment, aleti shangwe KRA wanabisha. Overtax, quizi kwa insta hatu seti mapicha. Nikuji console to keep pretend to go freshi barida. And it's good to speak facts, pia sini madwanzi. You elect a thief, nikauna pea mwizi maganji. Akuku sready kuwafanyia nyinyi madambi. Don't blame me, niki consider ule kasisi wa bangi. I'm oppressed by new check. Though it's a facade that I use when lacing these metaphors. Kenyans will only listen to you on your shadow. And who's to blame for this culture? I guess we'll never know. Hey, I wanna believe you, but why tenor? You making sense, you could die while lie tenor. Basiko basi yone nkikuwai tenor. You straight capping, kwani nini I'm jawai sema. In my head, I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head, I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head, I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. In my head, I wanna believe ya, but I'm lying to myself. Tell me what the man go do. Tell me what the man go do. This time I recognize the faulty lies and true. The faulty lies and true. It's a new generation. I'm a youth for me shall come through. Youth for me shall come through. Whatever to do true. Tell me what the man go do. Tell me what the man go do. Tell it to me one more time. Look into my eyes. Tell it to me one more time. Look into my eyes.
Nadu, on chasse un fou. Nadu, on chasse un fou. If you not getting me, forget about it. And now by Lambo, is that why you're shouting? hear them do? I know they see them, who hear them do? A little investment in cryptocurrency. Every body I know see them do. Who hear them do? I know they see them, who hear them do? But the ungo knows how they know fit and do me.
It's right.
It's a panga, chocolate pang. Thank you for your support, on God, of course. To the people who just come on board, you are all very, very welcome. If you say at the pampa, so to the bridge and jump up, swallow the river, and if I know deliver, fuck my woman. How many break up? How many shut down? No one need lang bella repair. Don't make me suspect you. When you stop shit down, on your connect, don't call me. And if I can see my need.
Madenko.
Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today.
You made a banger, huh? Banger, huh?
Slick with it beats. Click the first link in the description to purchase this beat untagged.
In this video, you'll learn everything you need to know about the Citrus synthesizer in FL Studio. You'll learn how to control the plugin, how to generate and shape different sounds, and I'll also show you how to add unison and reverb and other effects to make your sounds really professional, wide, and lush. This is one of the most powerful synths in FL Studio, and I hope that after this short tutorial, it'll be one of your favorites and you'll be able to generate pretty much any sound you can imagine. In these tutorials, I like to get sound generated as soon as possible, but I do have to very quickly go over the plugins interface either way. For now, what I want to make your sounds really professional, wide, and lush. This is one of the most powerful synths in FL Studio, and I hope that after this short tutorial, it'll be one of your favorites and you'll be able to generate pretty much any sound you can imagine. In these tutorials, I like to get sound generated as soon as possible, but I do have to very quickly go over the plugin's interface, and feel free to follow along with me in this video or not. You'll learn from it either way. For now, what I want us to do is just go to the presets at the top here, left click, and select default. I'll very quickly go over the various different parts of this synth, and then we can just dive into generating sound right away. So initially you have a main panel, which is accessed up here, which has a lot of general settings for the synth. Then you have 6 operators, labeled 1 through 6. View these as oscillators. In a regular synth, this is what generates the sound of the synthesizer. Then we have 3 filters to help shape the sort of frequency content of those sounds. And finally, we have an effects section, which has like a chorus, reverbs, delays, that sort of stuff. At the right-hand side, we have a rather intimidating looking matrix, but I assure you, it's really not that complicated. And by the end of this, you'll feel really comfortable using it. At the bottom, we have a keyboard, which you can turn off and on using this button up at the top here. Finally, we have a graph or curve editor down here, which we'll go into in more detail. To start off with, I just want to go to OP1, which is operator 1. And if I play a key on the keyboard, we have a standard sine wave. So to change this wave, we can use this slider to go from sine to triangle, saw, or square wave. We can also select them just here, and we can also select a combination between those waves. So this is where the sound is generated, and all of these other controls here, which you can read what they are at the top left corner of FL Studio, they just shape the wave in various other ways, which can subtly or dramatically change the wave shape and sound. And the last 2 controls you need here are declick, which simply declicks the sound, and pluck. Pluck dramatically changes the sound. So if you're after that sort of plucked sound, that's the one to click. Moving to the right, we can control the volume output of this oscillator. And you'll notice that we're only using one operator or oscillator right now, but if I select the other ones, you'll notice that their volume is also set to full, but we can't hear them. And this is all down to this matrix. So this is the first explanation of the matrix. You'll notice that this matrix is split into rows and columns. So we have 1 through 6, so a row and a column for each of the sound generators. Then we have 3 filters, the effects, and the output. And all we need to know right now is that if you want to hear sound from one of the operators, you have to go to its row, so in this case 1, and then we go to the output and we make sure that it's turned up. If I turn this down, we don't hear anything. If I turn it back on itself, we hear the exact same thing with a polarity flip. You'll also notice that if I click on any of these rows or columns, it takes me to the corresponding operator. So if I want to hear operator 2 and 1 together, I go to operator 2. I'm just going to pick a different wave shape, make sure that the volume's turned up a bit. And then I go to row 2 all the way across to the output, and I just turn it up a bit. Now we're hearing a combination of operator 1 and 2. But I'll just turn that off to make it simple. So to carry on with this tutorial, we're just using this one operator. You'll notice back in OP1, we have various options for pan, volume. So if we want to change the volume of this sound over time, we can go to volume envelope, and this is our ADSR envelope. So we can control whether we want the sound to rise up slowly, whether we want it to pluck, etc. However, you'll see there is a curve here, but the sound doesn't follow it. When I press the key, it's just loud right away. So what we have to do is enable the envelope. So volume envelope, turn it on there. If I now select and drag a point, so I'm giving it a nice long attack. Time, you'll hear that the sound takes longer to rise up to that point. So you can click and drag any of these points and make this curve look and sound the way you want it to. And you can also control them down here with these dials. It's also important to note these little nodes, and if you left click and drag them, you can change the tension of the curves. Although controlling volume with an envelope is probably the most common way, you don't have to use an envelope to control it. You can use an LFO, you can use different keys on the keyboard, and I'll demonstrate this with the panning. So instead of controlling the panning with an envelope, I'm going to go over to the LFO, turn it on, and you'll hear that the panning goes left to right following this envelope. So you can control your panning, volume, pitch, phase using these various different modifiers at the bottom. But now let's go on to something a lot more fun, which is the unison, because right now we just have one voice, which is a little bit boring. If I go to this main tab, jump straight over to the unison over here and up the order 9 voices. Let's try 7. So that sounds a lot nicer. And all of these other sliders here simply control that type of unison. So the unison can be mono or wide. You can detune it less or more. So it gives you sort of subtle control there. Something to note is that this drop down button here lets you change the distribution to be original, uniform, blurred, just like you might have noticed in other synthesizers like Serum. And now that we've started adding more voices, it's important to talk about the quality settings. Sometimes using Citrus, the sound you hear is not the sound you get after exporting. So to make sure that what you hear before and after is the same, just make sure that these settings are exactly the same. 8 times oversampling is great. If you want to do more oversampling, you might find yourself getting a different sound or higher precision, but it's going to really tax your computer. So only do extra oversampling if your computer can cope with it and you really think you can hear the difference. Even if these were set to just ×2 oversampling, you'd still be able to get extremely high quality sounds out of it. These other boxes are not really essential for the time being, so I'm just going to go back to operator 1. And what I'd like to do is start filtering and adding effects because I want to keep moving forward and changing this sound that we've got, see what we can do with it. So if I go across to filter 1, now I could use filter 2 or 3, but they're all the same. When I select filter 1, it lights up in the matrix. And what I'm going to do is use this filter to filter away some of the high end. So if I put up an EQ on the screen, this is the sort of filter we're doing. There's some slightly unfamiliar controls here, but there's some more familiar ones here like cutoff and resonance. So if I adjust the cutoff and resonance, that's right, you hear absolutely nothing, which is sort of confusing. And the reason for this is because the filter isn't set up on the output of the synth. The filter is just sitting there, and we need to tell Citrus to send operator 1 to the filter and then send the filter out. To do this, I need to go to column 1, where you can see the operator 1. Then I need to go down to the filter 1 and turn it up. And this sends signal from operator 1 to the filter. Now I need to go to the row of the filter and go across and turn its output all the way up. But in this configuration, operator 1 is also being sent out and to the filter. So if I want all of operator 1 to go through the filter, I also need to turn operator 1's output down here. Now all of the sound from operator 1 is going to the filter and then out of the synth, which is why we can now hear the cutoff. So I know that if you've never used a matrix before, that was probably quite confusing. The best way to learn it is to rewind the video a little bit and follow along those steps with me with Citrus open, but I hope it's starting to make a little bit of sense. So some of these controls you're familiar with, cutoff and resonance, but this bit's a little bit confusing. This is where you choose your type of filter. You can choose low pass, high pass, all these other filters here. I've heard these referred to as quality 1 times, 2 times, 3 times. This isn't the case. These are the steepness of the slope. So ×1, I think, is a 12 dB per octave. ×2 is 24 dB. ×3 is 36 dB. So the slope just gets steeper and steeper. So right now, if I just choose 1 and adjust the cutoff, right now this filter is static. So it's not reacting to the sound. It's simply filtering away just like an EQ and then being left alone. However, I want this filter to adapt to the synth and to what I'm playing. So to do this, I'm going to turn the envelope all the way up. And then instead of selecting the volume, I'm going to choose cutoff, and I'm going to control the cutoff with an envelope. So if I turn on the envelope here, if I adjust my envelope to look like this, you'll hear that the cutoff opens up and then closes down again, giving me a sort of slight plucked effect. And if I pull this in more, that's going to be more dramatic. You could imagine how to start shaping sounds like this. However, Citrus gives you a lot of control. You don't have to control the cutoff with an envelope at all. You can go to an LFO, or one of my favorite is key mapping. If I press different keys and you look in this graph down here, you'll see that there's a different white line representing each key. So if I drag this graph up, this means that on these keys, this filter cutoff will be at its maximum value. And if I drag this bit down up here, the higher keys will now be filtered a lot more. The cutoff will be lower. Now, depending on which key you play, you're going to get either a higher cutoff or a lower one. So as we go up the keyboard, you get less and less high end, which can be a really nice subtle way to control the sort of harshness or sharpness of especially like brass synth patches. Just if you roll off a little bit of high end as you get into the higher keys, it can sound a lot more pleasant. I'm just going to right click and delete those points and just set this one back up. And I'm going to set up an envelope on this cutoff. So this is the sound I've decided to go for. Sort of a little bit brassy, a little bit wubby. And alongside the filter, there's also a wave shaper here, which allows you to mix in an amount of distortion. But this one's quite self-explanatory. You're either adding distortion or you're not. And now we're going to go to the effects section. So over here, we have a chorus, a reverb, and also an effects send. So these are just go reverb here, turn it on, or you go delay and turn it on. However, if I press play, you're not hearing any of that effect because, again, we have to go to the matrix. So I'm using operator 1, and I want to send that to the effects chain. So I go to the row of operator 1, and I go over to the effects, and I turn its output up into the effects. Now, if I go back to the effects here, so you're hearing all of that lush reverb and delay. The delays are quite simple. You have 3 stacked delays. You just turn them on, and all of these just affect your feedback and whatnots. If I go to the reverb, you can turn that on here. And to get great quick reverb sounds, I would go to this drop-down menu here, select reverb, and then just pick one of these presets from Fruity Reverb 2. You might want the drum room, the venue. Let's take a listen. Just gives you a quick different flavor of reverb. And again, you've got all the typical reverb controls you would expect. Just experiment with them. They all sound a bit different. The chorus is set up in much the same way, but to turn it on, you just have to turn the order up here, which, just like the unison tool, it adds a lot more depth and a lot more width to the sound, which, I mean, chorus is a very, very, very classic in the synthesizer world to add a dash of chorus onto something. The next control here is the send. And what this lets you do, if I pull up the mixer, you can see and hear the sound from Citrus coming out on effect slot 2. If I increase this number to 1, it will send a duplicate of the signal to the next available mixer track on the right. If I go, say, 2, it will be 2 to the right. This doesn't send an affected version of the signal out to another track, as some people believe. All this does is duplicates the sound so that you can add your own processing and effects onto it in parallel. So you might want to send it away, add a load of distortion or add your own delays or reverbs, and then blend it back in on your mixer. And that's just a really nice, neat way to do it without having to actually do any side chaining yourself on the mixer. There's just 2 more things to talk about with the effects, and one is that you can adjust the panning and volume of these effects just like you can any of the other operators or filters. So you could set up a volume envelope so that your reverb swells. You can add extra pre-delay to it or cuts away. So you can change the sort of volume shape of these effects that you're adding. And the final thing to mention about the effects is that if you weren't using this filter, but you were just outputting operator 1 to the output, you can use these 2 here to sort of blend between the amount of effects and the amount of sort of dry signal you're sending out. I'm going back to this main tab to quickly explain these 5 boxes here. So here you have a global volume for the synth, global pitch for the synth, and also whether the synth responds to the LFOs you've set up or not. So you can quickly turn off all your LFOs here. This here lets you subtly adjust all of the ADSR curves you've set up. So if you had one for operator 1 and 2, and they were both enabled, you can adjust them here to give overall the synth slightly more attack, less attack, etc. The same goes for any envelopes you've set up on the filter. Modulation XY we're not going to look at. It's more of a live performance thing. You can set up various parameters to be linked to these and affect them in real time, but it's not something we need to do right now. And this EQ is a neat little feature. It lets you affect the output of the synth or the effects or both. However, I like to just load a powerful EQ after my synthesizer and really tweak it to perfection. At this point, we've covered generating sounds, shaping them, filtering, adding effects, and generally trying to feel a bit more comfortable in the matrix. But there are two more topics for further study if you want to really master citrus, and these are FM and RM, frequency modulation and ring modulation. So far in this matrix, you've noticed that I've just selected a filter, an output, or an effect, but I haven't yet adjusted any of these in the middle. With FM selected here, adjusting one of these dials in the middle allows you to modify one of your operators based on the signal from another operator, which sounds really confusing, but it's best if you just hear it. I will use operator 2, which I will set up as a square wave, to modify operator 1. FM is often characterized by a metallic sound. It has this sort of metallic shimmer added to it, but the important thing with this matrix is that if you want one of your operators to affect another one, you have to read off the top and say, okay, operator 3, I want operator 3 to modify operator 2. Up at the top here, then I want operator 2 to modify operator 1. And that's how you sort of read off of this one here. You could say, I want operator 3 to modify 1 and 2 to modify 1, which is a bit different from saying I want 3 to modify 2, then 2 to modify 1. And it's all just about reading off the column and row. I know this gets a little bit confusing, but it's important to just slow it down, try it out for yourself, and most importantly, just test things out and listen to them. And if they sound good, they are good. The final point about FM is that you can set up an operator to modify itself. So if I want 1 to modify 1, let's take a listen. Point about FM is that you can set up an operator to modify itself. So if I want 1 to modify 1, let's take a listen. Going down to the bottom with RM, ring modulation, works on the same principle. You get 1 to affect another. Again, with different varying results. If you want to know more, I would recommend studying FM and RM in detail. I mean, there's hours worth to teach there. But as usual with these things, I think the best way to learn it is to dive in, just jump in head first and experiment with sounds. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you generate a sound. It just matters whether you think it sounds good and sort of fit for the purpose you want or not. So I know that that was quite a lot to cover in this video, but I hope it sort of went at a good pace for you and you learn how to, generate sounds, shape them, and really just sort of create any sound you want using Citrus. It's going to take you getting a little bit hands-on with it, but when you learn how to use this synth, it really is a very, very rewarding tool to have in your toolkit. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye for now.
Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we're going to go through this plugin called Morphine in FL Studio. If you're new here, I need you to smash that like button to extend that S in the intro. So you guys may not understand how this plugin works. Plugins. I learned about this plugin from the mob producers who make West Coast mob music. And basically the basses in here are just amazing. So let's just go through a couple presets before we get into like the sound design and how to go through all these different windows in here. So we have that like additive synth, it's Trying to mimic like FM synth, trying to recreate harmonics of real instruments. So this is really good bass. Great for West Coast hip hop. Probably the best bass plugin in FL Studio. Super slept on, by the way. All right, so let me show you guys how this works. Now, they also have keyboard sounds in here, a bunch of dope sounds. I just don't have time to go through everything. Here's my favorite keyboard called Keyboard Crystal EPFG. They have another dope one called Vocal Vowel for West Coast. And they have, I think, strings. They have a cool violin sound. So, NFL Studio, super slept on by. So this is really good bass. This is really good bass. Great for West Coast hip hop. Got a sine wave, and this is the beginning of all sounds. What sound really is sine waves at different frequencies. Okay, this is called a fundamental frequency. This is like a basic sub bass. Okay, so that's called a fundamental frequency. So this first vertical line here is a fundamental. That's what generator means. It's generating a sound. It's generating harmonics. Nextly, we can go to the tab next to harmonic of the fundamental frequency. The math works out this way. If I have a frequency that's at 100 hertz, if my fundamental frequency is at 100 hertz, the second harmonic would be 2 times 100. So in that case, it'd be 200. And if I want to add the third harmonic, which would be right here, 3 times the fundamental will be 300. So I'm adding frequencies to the sound. And depending on which harmonic we add, it adds literally another note to the note that we're playing. So you can play multiple notes by playing one note. So we're playing the tonic there. Let's add the second harmonic. Let's add the third. And now it's like, doo, doo, doo. Now we're playing a perfect fifth. Sounds like it. Let's add the fifth harmonic. And this is adding dissonance here, the fifth harmonic. You can hear it's chords. You're playing multiple notes inside of one note. It's not just one note. And that's the cool part about music, is that we have notes that are really notes of notes. And then we can play notes of notes of notes called chords. So it gets really complex. So that's what sound is. It's stacking different harmonics. So you can left click and drag. So the higher the harmonics go, the more metallic and buzzy the sound. So I'm just left clicking. Now, it thins out the more harmonics you add. Okay, so it will thin out the sound. So if you ever mess up, you can go to here, I believe in clear. Might be making that up. Reset current view. Okay. And now we can start back over. So I like this tone right here. It's very like Need for Speedish. Let's just boost it a little bit. Let's pull this down 12 semitones, which is 1 octave, and let's add some drive to add some more sizzle to the sound. And we have glide, which adds a pitch bend between the notes. So it's like wow, 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 like that. Like that. The master envelope controls the curvature of the waveform. So a slower attack means it's going to be like. So that's more for with that attack time. For this sound, we're just going to leave it as is. Let's mess with the glide. Now, this has a really nice chorus. We're going to add a subtle delay, almost undetectable. Let's add a subtle reverb here to the sound. So let me show you guys something that you probably didn't know. You could drag samples into here. Now, there may be a way to drag samples into the harmonic generator. I haven't found a way to do that. Maybe there is, but I haven't found a way. So what I'll do is I'll drag a sample in here. I'll drag it into the envelope area. And what happens is this resynthesis area will say, the question is, how do we activate it? Here under the spectrum, think of this like an envelope, an ADSR envelope. We're going to click where it says spectrum and import charge sample. And now we have a synthetic sound. I mean, we have a real sound turned synthetic. Okay, so now notice it did take away from our harmonics. I don't know. I'm not sure the correlation between the two. I don't know if this overrides this or what. But I don't hear our original tone anymore. So I assume that this envelope overrides this area. I'm not sure the science behind it, you know, so you guys have to like just understand that. But click here, and then if you guys don't like the sound, we could always uncharge the sample. Reset button, reset spectrum. Okay. And then we have to draw our harmonics one more time. There seems to be a tool here, and I assume that this tool filters out harmonics for us. So let's say you want to make a square wave. You're going to click where it says tool. Let's go to odd harmonics. And now when I left click and drag, it just selects all the odd harmonics so that it saves time with me trying to go through and figure out where, you know, the odd harmonics are. Then I would go to one harmonic and just left click to fade it out, or just right click to get rid of them. Okay, so that's a tool. Let's right click to delete. Let's go to this tool. Let's do even harmonics. This is going to be your sawtooth. But see, it's adding all of the harmonics, so we need to get rid of some of the harmonics we don't want. Let me show you guys a couple more things here. On the right side, we have this control range. Now I'm going to mess with this. I don't know what it does, but I assume it messes with the voices in this view here. I don't hear it though. So for that reason, I can't conclude what this is actually doing. The pulse width modulator filter, if you turn it on plus mode, we'll hear some phase cancellation. So you're going to hear more of that if we use odd harmonics, because that would be, and we can combine, as you guys just saw, even and odd harmonics. It's a pretty cool sound. And then we have an EQ, which we can further shave off some harmonics here. If it's too bright of a sound, let's turn this on. So we have generator A, B, C, and D. So these all create, you know, harmonics. Let's turn this mode off. And let's just add some kind of sub energy. Now, I don't know how to, let's see what changes here. I don't know how to make the voice of B stand out. So that's the only tricky part here. Let's also go to the detune window and detune the voices within oscillator A. And it also gives you values right here. So now we're detuning the individual harmonics from each other so they don't just stack in phase. You got to be very light-handed with that. Yeah, I'm not hearing operator B or generator B, so I don't know how to actually make that be heard. I'll quickly look around, but let me see. It's not very clear. So this is one of the most unclear synths in all of FL Studio. I think we have, okay, here we go. Here's our morph between generator A, B, and D. So it looks like we have to decide using a slider, blending these different generators together. So that's how we get generator B to actually work. And the modulation looks like if we want to create complex mod matrices, like for example, if you want your mod wheel, which would be CC number 1 to control like some kind of pitch wobble, you could do that. This is mostly CC MIDI or envelope 1. Let's see what we can even modulate here. We can modulate the panning. Let's use envelope 2. And let's see if we can find envelope 2. So let's go back to the main thing. Let's see. So envelopes, not very clear where the envelopes are located. So again, not the greatest interface for navigation here. I will look around for a second here. I assume these are envelopes here to the right. You can right click to create curvatures here. So this looks like modulation for the mod matrix here. So if you want the sound to move from B to A quickly, you can kind of draw in, you can right click. It's not clear what it's doing though. So the envelope's right at the bottom. I didn't miss, okay. So I did from left to right. I want to give it a quick decay curvature.
oscillators or operators with FM, frequency modulation, RM, ring modulation or amplitude modulation, subtractive is powerhouse. We will talk about these three synthesis methods and how Citrus can take advantage of them. It also includes 3 filter modules with per voice wave shapers, an effects module with chorus, 3 delay lines, and unique per voice programmable unison settings. Citrus has 6 operators with lots of settings that can be routed either directly out of the plugin with these knobs, into the chorus, reverb, and delay effects here, into one of the 3 filters here. These need to be routed to the output as well to make any sound, or to any other operators using the FM or RM matrix here. You can also chain the filters via the next control. More on that in the Love Filter video. Be aware that the stereo panning controls here and the panning envelope, more on envelopes later, only apply when an operator is directly routed to the synth's output per voice. So each note in a chord gets its own instance of all filters, and therefore they have to be inserted pre-panning. They also each have their own panning control. Every operator has a set of 6 sliders to pre-calculate the waveform. It's possible to make all basic waveforms with these sliders. By default, the first slider moves gradually between sine wave at the bottom, triangle at 25%, saw at 50%, air at 75%, and short pulse at 100%. The next 4 sliders to the right are used to modify this wave shape. Tension, skew, and sine shaping do what you would expect. The pre-filter acts like a low-pass filter on the waveform, and noise adds white noise into the oscillator signal. The 3 switches below the waveform display constrain the waveform in different ways. The half switch is used to squish the waveform into the top half of the display. This means it does not oscillate under the 0 crossing point. All negative amplitude values are gone. The even switch compresses the waveform into the left or right half of the display and adds silence in the other half. And finally, the absolute switch, I like to call this the mirror switch, will mirror the waveform in the vertical center. Use center to remove any DC offset, that is, a vertical offset in the waveform. For example, the half switch will pretty much guarantee that there is DC offset in the output. D-click can remove initial clicks on note start. Band limit can limit the frequency response of oscillators to within 20 kHz to avoid aliasing. This is a very efficient but lossy process, so it can be helpful when oversampling is using too much CPU. This is most easily demonstrated with slide notes. Pluck behaves similarly to its counterpart in Hammer, only here it's controlled via the damping envelope. You'll notice that my FM matrix just deactivated the FM controls in operator 1's row. An operator using this control cannot receive FM from another. It can still be used as an FM source though. You can set the oscillator's starting phase here, check global to have it free running, adjust operator volume, which also controls FM amount but not RM amount, and choose how much the pitch envelope affects the pitch here. The 2 boxes here determine the main pitch of the oscillator set you play. When the right one is higher than 0, the left one is a pitch offset. The right box, however, shows pitch ratio. Every whole number represents a step in the harmonic series or Fourier series. More on that later. For now, know that octaves are powers of 2. So ratio 1 is 2 to the power of 0, ratio 2 is 2 to the power of 1, and ratio 4 is 2 to the power of 2, and so on. Of course, you can click and drag up and down to the right of the decimal point and make fine adjustments. This articulator section should be familiar to you if you've watched our Love Filter or SliceX videos. Basically, the top row of tabs is for parameters that can be modulated, and the bottom row is for articulators modulating those parameters. Panning, volume, FM or RM amount, pitch, phase and damping can be controlled by envelopes. See the card on screen right now for a deeper explanation on those. LFOs, key tracking, velocity tracking, mod X and Y macros, these are on the main tab, random mapping and unison offset mapping. We will talk about the oscillator tab later on. The filters have slightly different parameters for modulation. However, since they are largely the same as Love Filter's controls, you can click the time-stamped card on screen right now to get up to speed on how they work. To understand the intricate controls in the FM matrix and articulator settings, let's go over the 3 synthesis types Citrus can perform. Subtractive synthesis is the concept of designing a sound via removing frequencies from or attenuating frequencies in a harmonically complex starting sound. Any basic waveform is made up of individual sine wave frequencies along the harmonic series or Fourier series. If you want the mathematical proof behind that, there is a great video by 3 Blue 1 Brown explaining how individual sine waves or partials make up a complex waveform. The harmonic series starts with the fundamental frequency and then keeps incrementing the frequency by the fundamental frequency for every extra step. The harmonic individual sine waves. There is a great video by 3 Blue 1 Brown explaining how individual sine waves